The movers hadn't even finished unpacking my husband's lover's boxes when my phone buzzed. "Enjoy your little apartment," Michael texted. Then came the second message. Short, cruel, final. "You'll die poor." For a moment, I just stared at the screen, my reflection trembling in the glass. 21 years of marriage reduced to one text and a stranger in my $5.4 million home. The rain outside blurred the city skyline, matching the blur in my chest. I was still holding my divorce papers when my phone rang again. No caller ID, just a row of zeros ending with a single 1. A calm male voice said, "Mrs. Carter? This is Colonel Whitmore from the Pentagon." I almost laughed. "The Pentagon?" "Yes, ma'am. Your grandfather's classified mission has been declassified. His inheritance unclaimed for 60 years is now yours." Then, after a pause, "If you can fulfill his final condition." The smell of coffee still lingered in the kitchen the morning I came to collect my last few things. Our kitchen, now his kitchen shared with her. Tiffany was already there, barefoot in my silk robe, humming some pop song while arranging flowers on the counter I'd designed myself. "Oh," she said when she saw me, feigning surprise. "Michael didn't tell me you were stopping by." Her smile was the kind that cuts. Behind her, Michael appeared, sleeves rolled up, perfectly at ease. "She fits in, doesn't she?" he said casually, gesturing around the room. I never realized how much warmer this house could feel. I wanted to scream. Instead, I looked down at the small box in my hands, the one labeled Eugene's things, and said quietly, "Take good care of it. The house, I mean. It's all yours now." He smirked. "I already am." Outside, the wind hit like a slap. I drove away without looking back, my reflection in the rearview mirror dissolving in rain streaks. I had a violin case in the back seat, a single suitcase, and a future that suddenly felt smaller than the apartment waiting for me across town. That night, I unpacked in silence. One lamp, one chair, one woman who'd lost everything. The loneliness was almost peaceful until my phone buzzed. "Enjoy your little apartment," Michael had written. Then, "You'll die poor." My throat tightened. I almost deleted it, but my finger froze when the phone started ringing again. No name, no number, just zeros and a single one. I hesitated, then answered. "Mrs. Carter?" a firm voice asked. "This is Colonel James Whitmore from the Pentagon." I laughed bitterly. "The Pentagon? That's a new scam." "This is no scam," he said evenly. "Your grandfather, Captain Eugene Holt, completed a classified mission in Cambodia in 1963. That mission has just been declassified. You are listed as his direct heir." My heart stumbled. My grandfather? He died with nothing. What could possibly? There's a financial inheritance due to him, now valued at approximately $179 million. The room swayed. I gripped the edge of my counter, nearly dropping the phone. "I think you have the wrong person," I whispered. "No, ma'am," he replied. "But to claim it, you'll have to fulfill one final condition your grandfather left behind." The line crackled softly. "What condition?" I asked. Whitmore's tone lowered, like he was reciting something sacred. He wrote, "The heir must lose everything before gaining anything." And suddenly, it all made sense why the call came today. Sleep was a stranger that night. I sat on the floor beside the only lamp in my apartment, the soft yellow light spilling over the divorce papers, the phone, and the old wooden box marked Eugene's things. My grandfather's name, Captain Eugene Holt. My mother's father had always been a quiet man. When I was little, he'd play piano in the dim living room, eyes closed, fingers moving like he was touching ghosts. He used to tell me, "Every note hides a truth, Anna. Some truths just take longer to be heard." When he died, we buried him with his medals, what little he had left. There was no money, no mystery, no talk of secret missions. My mother said the government forgot him, like they forget everyone who serves too long and speaks too little. But that phone call from the Pentagon, it wouldn't leave my mind. I replayed it over and over, his voice calm, authoritative. "Your grandfather's mission has been declassified." Declassified after 60 years. I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside were yellowed pages of sheet music, a worn violin bow, his military dog tag, and a small leather-bound notebook tied with twine. The pages smelled of dust and memory. On the first page, in fading pencil, he'd written, "For Anna. When silence becomes truth." I traced the letters with my fingers. Silence becomes truth. What did that even mean? The sheet music was strange too. I knew enough to read notes, but these weren't normal markings. Numbers scribbled in the margins, erratic tempo changes that didn't make musical sense. It looked more like math than melody. The rational part of me whispered, "You're grieving, imagining things." But another part, the part that used to believe in Grandpa's stories about coded songs, was beginning to listen. I Googled Operation Night Requiem. Nothing. Classified references, redacted documents, nothing concrete. At 3:12 a.m., I received an encrypted email from a Pentagon address. It simply said, "Your flight has been arranged. Delta 217, O'Hare to Washington, D.C. Seat 14 amperes. Departure, 9:40 a.m. Your presence is required. Bring your grandfather's journal." My heart raced. Attached at the bottom was the same signature, Colonel James Whitmore, Department of Defense. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, the city lights blinking through my blinds. Michael had taken the mansion, the cars, and every dollar of our shared account. He'd told me I'd die poor, and for the first time, I almost believed him. But now, sitting there with that journal on my lap and my grandfather's words echoing in my mind, something inside me shifted. Poor didn't mean powerless. And maybe, just maybe, this was my chance to find out what truth my grandfather had hidden in the silence. I zipped the journal into my violin case and whispered to the empty room, "All right, Grandpa. I'm listening." Outside, the first light of dawn slipped over the city like a secret finally beginning to speak. The Pentagon wasn't what I expected. It didn't hum with chaos the way movies made it look. It hummed with order. Everything gleamed. The marble floors, the walls, the silence. Even the air felt rehearsed. Colonel Whitmore was waiting near security, tall, square shoulders, expression carved from discipline. "Mrs. Carter," he said, extending a hand. "I trust your flight was smooth." "I'm still wondering if this is real," I replied. He gave a faint, knowing smile. "I understand. Most people feel that way before they learn the truth." We descended through a series of checkpoints, badges, scans, signatures until we reached a room that felt buried beneath the world. Cold air. No windows. Only one metal table. On it, a folder stamped "Declassified. Operation Night Requiem." Whitmore slid the file toward me. "Your grandfather's mission, 1963. Officially, he was a military musician assigned to morale operations. In reality, he was a cryptographer. He opened a black and white photo, 6 soldiers in jungle uniforms standing beside the twisted wreckage of an aircraft. This was Cambodia, February 1963. A Soviet reconnaissance plane went down in the jungle. Your grandfather's unit recovered what was inside, a prototype code, encryption device, and something else. I leaned forward. "Something else?" "A ledger," he said. "Detailed records of Swiss bank accounts used to fund espionage payments between American contractors and Soviet intermediaries." I blinked. "You're saying our own defense contractors were funding the enemy?" He met my eyes. "War profits make strange partners, Mrs. Carter." He turned another page, handwritten notes, full of ciphers and musical notation. "Your grandfather hid everything," he continued. "He encrypted the data into musical compositions. Each rhythm and rest corresponds to a number sequence. For 60 years, those compositions were classified under the label personal artifacts." My heart pounded. "And the money?" "The recovered funds were frozen unclaimed since the mission. The Department of Defense held them in trust, adjusted for inflation and compound interest. As of last week, the amount totals $179 million. The number made me dizzy. "But why me?" Whitmore straightened. "Because Captain Holt named you as the sole heir. But there's a condition." I swallowed. "The one you mentioned before." He nodded. "Yes." His note reads, "When my heir has lost all that can be taken, they will be ready to receive what cannot be stolen." The words hung between us like smoke. I looked down at the photo of the wreckage at the face of the man who had always hummed lullabies instead of war songs, and I felt the strange pull of destiny I couldn't explain. Whitmore stood, his tones suddenly official again. "Mrs. Carter, your grandfather's possessions contain the key to unlock the remaining files. We believe he hid it in the margins of his sheet music. Decode it, and you'll find what he wanted you to finish." He handed me a sealed envelope, my name written on the front in faded ink. My grandfather's handwriting. "For Anna Carter. Play the notes in order. The truth is waiting." Back in the Pentagon's guest quarters, I placed the envelope on the desk like it might explode. The paper was yellowed, the ink uneven. My grandfather's handwriting, the same looping script that once signed my birthday cards, now carried a weight I could barely breathe under. I unfolded the first page. "Anna, if you're reading this, the silence has finally broken. In music, as in life, truth hides in the pauses. Play them carefully." Below the message were 3 bars of handwritten notes. The rhythm looked wrong, impossible, almost, but something about it felt intentional. I laid out his old sheet music beside it. The Winter Sonata. The one he used to play while I sat by the piano, swinging my legs, thinking the melodies were just lullabies. But this time, I didn't hear music, I saw numbers. The quarter rests, the tempo changes, the dots above certain notes. They weren't decoration. They were a pattern. I spent hours circling them, lining up letters and numbers like a puzzle. The sun had risen by the time the sequence finally made sense. 39.290 4 degrees north, 76.612 2 degrees west. Baltimore. I called Whitmore immediately. "I think I found coordinates." There was silence, then a sharp exhale. "He really did it. I'll arrange transport." By late afternoon, we were driving through Baltimore's industrial outskirts. The city felt heavy, its skyline gray under low clouds. Whitmore parked in front of an abandoned brick building with faded paint. "Storage facility 447. The keypad," he said. "Try your code." I hesitated, then entered the sequence I'd derived from the rhythm marks. A green light blinked once. The metal door unlocked with a low groan. Inside, the air smelled of dust and oil. Only one fluorescent light flickered overhead. And there it was, a single metal filing cabinet, olive green and scarred with age. On top sat a chessboard frozen mid-game. Whitmore studied it. "Budapest Gambit," he murmured. "A sacrifice opening. Your grandfather used to play it during his intelligence days." Oh, I didn't understand what that meant until I opened the top drawer. Inside were old ledgers, Swiss bank records, and black and white photos Eugene Holt, with soldiers whose faces were scratched out in black ink. And beneath them, a smaller box, wrapped in cloth. My fingers trembled as I lifted the lid. Documents typed and stamped with foreign seals. Transfers, account numbers, and signatures I recognized from headlines. Ashford Technologies. I blinked, reading again. My ex-husband Michael had just taken a consulting position with them before the divorce. No, that couldn't be coincidence. Whitmore's expression hardened. "Your grandfather uncovered that this company supplied defective helicopter parts during Vietnam, parts that killed American soldiers. They funneled the profits through Swiss accounts. This evidence would have destroyed powerful families." I swallowed hard. "So he hid it and encoded the proof in his music?" "Yes. And now, it seems those same families are back in power." Before I could answer, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered and froze. Michael's voice. "Anna," he said, calm, almost cold. "You need to stop whatever you're doing. You have no idea who you're dealing with." My stomach turned. "How do you even—" He cut me off. "Just take the money and disappear. Don't be like your grandfather." Then the line went dead. Whitmore's jaw clenched. "You've been followed." I looked at the ledger again, at the name Ashford stamped like a wound across every page. And I whispered, "He's not just a thief of my marriage. He's part of this." We didn't make it 10 blocks from the warehouse before headlights flared behind us, too bright, too close. Whitmore muttered a curse. "That's no coincidence. Hold on." The black SUV accelerated. Tires screamed against wet asphalt. Rain lashed the windshield in streaks of silver as we sped through narrow Baltimore streets. My pulse thundered. Who are they? People who'd rather this secret stay buried. We veered into an old industrial alley, the SUV still tailing us. Whitmore cut the lights, turned sharply, and killed the engine. We sat in darkness, breathing hard. The sound of rain and distant sirens filled the air. When the SUV finally passed, Whitmore exhaled slowly. "We can't go back to DC tonight. Too risky." I nodded, though my hands were shaking. We found a cheap roadside motel near the harbor, the kind that reeked of damp carpet and bad decisions. Inside, Whitmore spread the documents across the bed. "Ashford Technologies," he said grimly. "Founded by William Ashford in the 1952, they made billions off military contracts, defective rotor parts, falsified safety reports, hundreds of soldiers dead." I flipped through the pages. Each signature, each transaction, was like a ghost, screaming from the paper. Then I froze. A name near the bottom. Michael Carter, Senior Project Consultant. My throat went dry. He's one of them. Whitmore looked up. "Your ex-husband?" I nodded slowly. "He told me not to dig. He knew exactly what I'd find." My phone buzzed again. The same unknown number. Whitmore's hand hovered over his gun. "Don't." But I answered anyway. "Anna," Michael's voice rasped through the static. "You have no idea what you're getting into." "Then explain it to me," I snapped. "Because right now it looks like you're sleeping in a house built on dead men's bones." He laughed softly, a sound that made my skin crawl. "This isn't about right or wrong. It's about survival. Your grandfather stole something that didn't belong to him. I'm just trying to fix it." "You mean cover it up?" "You always were dramatic," he said coldly. "Just take the inheritance and walk away. They'll let you live if you disappear." My chest tightened. "They? Who's they, Michael?" Silence. Then a click. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, trembling. Whitmore knelt beside me. "He's compromised. Probably working for whoever inherited Ashford's interests." "He was part of it all along," I whispered. "Our marriage, the money, everything. He used me to get close to my grandfather's records." Whitmore's expression softened. "Then he underestimated you." I let out a broken laugh. "Everyone does." Thunder rolled outside. Whitmore stood, sliding his pistol into his jacket. "You have a choice, Anna. We can vanish tonight. Or you can finish what your grandfather started." I looked at the documents scattered across the bed pages of lies, blood, and betrayal, and felt something in me harden. "For 60 years, I said quietly, they buried the truth. My grandfather died to protect it. I'm not running." Whitmore hesitated. "If you go through with this, you'll be putting a target on your back." I met his eyes. "Let them aim." He nodded once, resolute. "Then we expose them. Every name, every account, every sin," I added. Lightning flashed, illuminating the pages like a storm of ghosts. In that moment, I understood why my grandfather had written his music in code. Truth, like melody, could be beautiful, but it could also be fatal. Whitmore gathered the files, his voice steady. "We'll contact a journalist I trust. But from now on, we move carefully. No calls, no credit cards, no patterns." Outside, the wind howled against the window. Inside, my pulse slowed. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't afraid. I was angry, and anger, I realized, was just courage that finally decided to speak. "All right," I whispered to the storm. "Let's finish the song." The next morning, the city looked washed raw by rain, Baltimore's skyline glinting like something half forgiven, half forgotten. Whitmore's phone buzzed with a coded message from a secure channel. "We've got one chance," he said. "A contact at the Washington Post, Dennis Cole, former military journalist. If anyone can bring this story to light, it's him." We met Dennis in a diner that smelled of burnt coffee and sleepless nights. He was broad-shouldered, gray-haired, and wore the kind of expression that had seen too much truth to be impressed by money. Whitmore slid the folder across the table. Evidence of war, profiteering by Ashford Technologies. Swiss accounts, falsified contracts, internal memos. Dennis flipped through the documents, his eyes narrowing. "This could shake the entire defense sector," he murmured. "But it also paints targets on all of us. Are you sure you want this out?" I met his gaze. "My grandfather died protecting this information. My husband helped bury it. I'm done living in silence." Dennis studied me for a moment, then nodded. All right, Mrs. Carter. Let's make some noise. The next 72 hours were a blur of late nights and glowing screens. We set up in a safe house provided by Whitmore's contacts. Every wall was covered in maps, timelines, account transfers, and photocopies of Eugene Holt's sheet music. Each musical measure unlocked new codes, dates of transactions, initials, even routing numbers. It was mesmerizing, terrifying. I felt like I was playing an invisible duet with my grandfather across time. At one point, I whispered, "He knew they'd come after me." Whitmore replied quietly, "He also knew you wouldn't stop." By dawn on the third day, Dennis pushed back from his laptop. "We've got it. Every transfer, every connection from 1963 to now." The money moved through shell companies Michael helped manage. Ashford Technologies, Carter Consulting, and half a dozen offshore entities. Clean on paper, rotten underneath. He turned the screen toward me. "When this hits the press, they'll come for you first. You ready for that?" I thought of Michael's last call. "Take the money and disappear." I smiled faintly. I'd rather die honest than live bought. That afternoon, the story went live. Headline: Blood Notes. How War Profits Bought Silence for 6 Decades. Within hours, the internet exploded. News anchors shouted the words, "Military fraud, corruption, classified cover-up." Ashford Technologies' stock plummeted 45% in a single day. The FBI raided their headquarters by nightfall. And Michael? His photo filled the evening news. Michael Carter, former consultant, under investigation for federal conspiracy and obstruction of justice. Zero. My phone rang again, but this time the number wasn't blocked. "Anna?" Michael's voice cracked, small and frightened. "They froze my accounts. Everything's gone." "Then you finally understand," I said quietly. "Please," he begged. "They're saying I'm the scapegoat. You've destroyed me." "No, Michael," I whispered. "You destroyed yourself." Then I hung up. Whitmore sat beside me, watching the rain streak down the safe house window. "You know, you could have kept the Pentagon money. No one would have blamed you." I shook my head. "It was never about the money. It's about playing the notes he left unfinished." Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, justice, chaos, and history colliding in one furious harmony. Inside, I finally exhaled. The truth was louder than fear, and for the first time, I was ready to hear it. 3 days after the story detonated across every major network, my life no longer belonged to me. Reporters camped outside the safe house, helicopters circled the city, and the phrase, "the Carter revelation," trended for 72 straight hours. But in the quiet between the noise, I sat alone with a single sheet of paper, the official letter from the Pentagon. Subject: Final disbursement of classified compensation. Estate of Captain Eugene Holt. The total glared up at me. $179 million. Clean, legal, irrevocable. My signature alone could transfer it. Whitmore entered the room silently. "It's yours now," he said. "You earned it. The Department of Defense verified your claim this morning." Earned it. I rolled the words around in my mind, like they were made of glass. Earned it by losing everything? By surviving what they'd tried to bury? I looked at the check again and thought of my grandfather, playing his piano with cracked fingers in that nursing home. His medals gone, his story untold. "He never got a single dollar of this," I whispered. "No," Whitmore said softly. "He got something harder, clarity." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "I know what I'm going to do." The next week, I met Dennis at a press conference, except this time, I wasn't there to expose corruption. I was there to give something back. Standing under bright lights, microphones crowding the podium, I announced, "The entire inheritance will be placed into the Holt Foundation for veterans' families. It will fund medical care, scholarships, and music therapy for soldiers who gave their lives to the same machine that tried to silence my grandfather." Gasps rippled through the audience. A reporter shouted, "All of it? You're giving away $179 million?" I nodded. "All of it. Because some money is too heavy to keep." Whitmore stood off to the side, arms folded, his eyes glinting with something between pride and grief. When the conference ended, I slipped away through a side door into the night air. The city hummed around me, alive, chaotic, changed. I felt lighter than I had in years. The foundation office opened within weeks. The first group of recipients were the families of soldiers who had died in helicopter crashes between 1964 and 1970, the same models Ashford's company had supplied. I attended every ceremony, shook every hand, listened to every story. One widow, her voice trembling, told me, "I've waited 50 years for someone to say my husband's death mattered." I couldn't speak. I just hugged her and whispered, "It does now." Later that night, alone in my apartment, I played the Winter Sonata for the first time since decoding it. But this time, it wasn't a riddle, it was a requiem and a thank you. The notes hung in the air like prayer smoke, soft and endless. And for the first time since the divorce, since the lies, since the storm, I felt something almost forgotten. Peace. 6 months later, I stood backstage at Symphony Hall, palms trembling against the polished wood of my violin. The air shimmered with anticipation, every seat filled, every light burning bright. On the program, the audience read, "World Premiere, The Requiem Suite, by Captain Eugene Holt, completed and arranged by his granddaughter, Anna Carter." I could almost hear him chuckle at the absurdity of it all. A man who once played for dying soldiers in a jungle hospital was now being remembered on a world stage. As I stepped under the spotlight, the hall fell silent. For a heartbeat, I saw flashes of everything that brought me here: Michael's smirk, the texts, the gunmetal rain over Baltimore, the secret files, the faces of the families who'd lost everything. Then I lifted my bow. The first note rose like breath returning to a body. The melody was haunting, soft, deliberate, full of ghosts. Every bar carried a name, a memory, a confession. By the second movement, tears blurred my vision. By the third, I wasn't playing music anymore, I was playing truth. I could feel him, Grandpa Eugene, somewhere in the sound, guiding my fingers like he used to when I was small. When the final crescendo arrived, I held the note until the air itself seemed to stop moving. Silence. Then, an eruption of applause that shook the hall. People stood. Some cried, others simply stared, as if they'd witnessed something they couldn't explain. My mother was in the front row, her hands pressed to her heart. Beside her sat Colonel Whitmore, his uniform immaculate, his eyes bright with pride and something like forgiveness. When the curtain fell, I walked off stage trembling. Reporters waited, cameras flashing. But I wasn't thinking about fame. I was thinking about legacy. Whitmore met me in the corridor. He smiled faintly. "You did it." I shook my head. "We did. And so did he." He handed me an envelope, old, yellowed, sealed with wax. "I found this in the Pentagon archives," he said, "addressed to you." I opened it carefully. Inside was a single sentence, written in my grandfather's familiar hand. "The truth is a song, Anna. It only matters if you play it loud enough for others to hear." I folded it and tucked it close to my heart. Later that night, I walked home through the city lights. My phone buzzed, an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity won. A single message appeared. "You'll die poor." I stared at it for a moment, then smiled. "No," I typed back. "I'll die free." I slipped the phone into my coat pocket and looked up at the stars, faint above the city glow. The wind carried a distant hum, almost like a piano's final chord fading into the night. That was his song, our song, the one he'd hidden in silence for 60 years, waiting for someone brave or foolish enough to play it. And as I walked home beneath the streetlights, I realized something simple and absolute. Justice, like music, doesn't disappear. It only waits for the right hands to bring it back to life.